If you are using all of your allocated time talking, sharing information, just doing all the things, and you have not integrated an opportunity for your audience to talk back, you got to stick with me because this episode is for you. Hey everybody, I'm LinnitaHosten. I am the founder of Vocal Value, where we equip emerging leaders to become better communicators with themselves at home and at work. And we do so by teaching them communication skills via the mindset around communicating and increasing their toolbox with communicating in whichever environment that they're in. And we're trying something new. If you notice, we are shifting from a live podcast to a pre-recorded podcast. So if you're watching this, you happen to catch the replay, you can type in #replay and let me know where you're watching from. Also, I want to add, if it's your first time watching, type in the comments first timer. Now, I am doing a new series this month called Own the Mic with the intention of focusing on public speaking skills that you use in the office, at home, and with yourself. Today's topic is more so on, there are a lot of nuances when you're communicating and a lot of pressure to communicate the right things, not only with your words, but also with your body. And today I want to reinforce the need to listen while you're speaking. And that sounds counterproductive or counterintuitive. But the reason why this is critical is while you're communicating, remember, communication is the process of encoding and decoding. So encoding, you are sharing information for someone else to transcribe, and decoding, you're receiving information and you are trying to cipher or determine what's being said. So when we're communicating and we aren't listening as we're communicating, we don't get to see an audience's reaction to what we're sharing. If it's resonating, if they're confused, if they're amused, if it's connecting, and we can observe those things based on their body language or lack thereof. And this is not always an indication of how an audience member feels or how they're responding, because there are instances where I can recall seeing someone like this for my entire 60-minute keynote. I can recall that. And that same person would stand in line to say, what you shared, I had to hold back my tears as I was listening. But what I visually saw was someone disengaged. In fact, it was the inverse. This has only happened twice. They were having such an emotional reaction, but refraining from showing up in a space with tears or discomfort. So it looked or translated to being not interested. And that's 2 out of, 100 events that I've had. So I just want to emphasize that looking for these subtle cues does not guarantee that the audience feels this way. But if there are a lot of individuals expressing these subtle cues, that is a great indication that there may be time to listen. So some subtle cues to look for are eye contact. If you are captivating, engaging, resonating, a person's going to be looking at you. They're going to be making eye contact with you, actually, very deeply. They may even shift forward in their seat to lean forward. Depending on the layout of the room, they may even stand up. They may even clap. They may even shout back something, even if it's not appropriate, like yes, or yeah, I can relate. Those are great subtle cues that you are connecting. And that's what you should be listening for as you're speaking. Some other great subtle cues, I would say, are I mentioned someone kind of interjecting by saying something that supports what you are communicating. But also, you know, their body language, the placement of their feet and shoulders facing in the direction of you. So, yes, they're looking, but also their shoulders and their feet facing you. It's a really great subtle cue. They could not be facing you too. And listening like this. Typically in communication, where your feet are facing is where you'd prefer to go. So while you can't always see participants' feet, those are just some subtle cues to keep in mind. Now, if you are listening like a speaker, you won't use the entire time to talk. You will integrate opportunities for your listener to speak back to you. That can be through an activity, that can be through a call and response, that can be putting them into groups. But if we fill all of the time talking, and in an adult learning space, we did not leave time for reflection and processing. And that's a really important part of adult learning, where multiple people are coming with a variety of life experiences that they want to add to the learning experience. And we allow them to do that when we have opportunities for them to raise their hand and just share, like, yeah, I can recall a moment where I remember where this reminds me of, while it doesn't do anything for you, it does do something for them. A light bulb moment is happening. And we want to make sure when we're preparing material, we're preparing for light bulb moments to have their place. So that's a way. Q&A is another way too. If you don't want to integrate it into your talk, leave time for Q&A. That would require you, though, to map out the time that you're going to use and monitor it during your presentation so that you have sufficient time within your allotted time for Q&A. Q&A is powerful because things come up in people's minds. You intrigue them. You say something that causes them to think about something else, and they want to talk about it. Powerful communicators who own the room, that piece, they don't leave out. And I've heard this practice about, not ending your presentation with Q&A. And one of the ways you can do that is close out. Have a powerful close where you, whatever that is for you, let's say you share a quote by someone in the words of William Murphy, you only go deep if you're willing to go wide. Because if you're wide, then what's stopping you? I don't know. I would never close that way. But let's just say that was the close. And then, thank you for your time today. I'm LinnitaHosten. And remember, go deep. And then everyone claps. Woo, 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 woo. That's still closing. Woo, 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 woo. And you stand there. You receive the celebration and applause. And when that dies down, you may say, I've left some time to take your questions. Now you properly closed and you had questions. So you can still do both. So it just depends on the setting that you have and what that event planner or whomever's coordinating your segment, how they feel that time should be used. But again, we don't use all the allocated time talking when we're invited to present. We leave time and we're listening. We're listening while we're speaking. All right, that wraps up our On the Room series for tonight. And next week, we are going to pick back up with presence, not perfection. And I'm excited about that because a lot of us fear missing what we wrote on paper, not knowing, okay, I'm going into the weeds. I'll see you next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I love you. Have a great week.